Minister, what items might be exempt from the sale? Maybe food would be exempt from a sales tax.
Senator McCain, how do you come down on this question?
I believe that we've got to simplify the tax code, but one of the first areas we've got to go after is the alternate minimum tax, which is going to eat into 20 million American families if we don't eliminate it, and very quickly. Look, when we found out that Congress could not close a single military base when we had a huge number of them, we passed a law where we appointed a commission, and they said we would close so many bases, and Congress votes up or down. I would find Alan Greenspan. I'd say, give us your recommendations. We'll pass a law, and we will vote on Alan Greenspan and his commission's recommendations, yes or no, up or down. That's the way you're going to simplify the tax code, which now requires $140 billion for American families' income to prepare their tax return.
Congressman Tancredo.
The reason why we absolutely need to go to something like a fair tax, and I am a co-sponsor. And by the way, if you don't understand how it would work, I would suggest to you that you read Neil Bortz's book and John Linder's. It's a perfect explanation of how it works. Now, well, then you should know how it works. And the fact is that, but the most important reason to move from an income tax to something like a fair tax, to specifically a fair tax, is because an income tax is designed to manipulate behavior. Sure. It gives the government the power to manipulate your behavior. I reward you for the things I want you to do by giving you a tax cut. I penalize you for the things I don't want you to do by raising your taxes. Okay. That's too much power for the federal government. It is always going to be overreaching power.
I've got to move on. Senator Brownback, you get 30 seconds on this, and then we move on.
I think we need to move towards an optional flat tax. I think we need to go to flat tax. And let me say why here. We've got a problem with the current tax code, and we've tried to take it out, and every time you try to take it out, everybody comes to defend it that's got something in it. You can put an optional flat tax in the tax code and let people choose, and it will create economic growth. That's why 16 countries have already gone to a flat tax. It creates growth. Growth is the key for us in this economy, for us to get things moving forward.
But you're against the fair tax. I've got to move on now. Sorry, Governor. I've got to move on right now. We've got an email question coming in, and I'm going to ask every one of you to come in on this for 30 seconds. It comes from Adam Waldron from Pocatello, Idaho. And it starts like this. I have made several mistakes that have been defining moments in my life because of what I learned or was forced to realize. What is a defining mistake of your life and why? Congressman Hunter.
Because what I learned and was forced to realize. Think of a major mistake. Contemplating running as a Democrat in my very first.
Congressman Paul. Congressman Paul.
The only mistake I made and continue to make is I don't speak forcefully enough for the cause of liberty and the cause of the Constitution. I'm working on it all the time.
Governor Huckabee.
I think probably the greatest mistake I made was not taking good care of my own personal health for the first half of my life. And that's been one of the most transformational things I've done, and I just wish I'd started much earlier.
Probably from a political standpoint and a personal standpoint, the greatest mistake was when I first ran for office, being deeply opposed to abortion, but saying I'd support the current law, which was pro-choice and effectively a pro-choice position. That was just wrong. And when I became a governor and faced a life and death decision as a governor, I came down on the side of life. That was a mistake before that.
To have a description of my mistakes in 30 seconds?
There you go.
Defining mistake, Mayor. Just one defining mistake.
George, your father is a priest. I'm going to explain it to your father, not to you, okay?
Fair enough. I guess that's a pass, Senator McCain.
You want my list? I've got a whole here.
I would imagine that in 1967 in the USS Forrestal, where we just had a horrendous fire and the ship was headed back to the United States, and the guy came on board and said, we need people to go over to another aircraft carrier and stay in combat. That was a very defining moment. I thought about that a lot in the intervening 5.5 years in prison. The other mistake was when I went to a meeting among some regulators concerning a guy who was a supporter of mine. It was a mistake and one I never should have made.
Senator
Probably not telling my wife and kids and parents I love them enough. and just being more focused too many times on me instead of on them and on others is probably the biggest mistake I've made.
Governor Thompson.
My mother-in-law died of breast cancer. My wife has breast cancer. My young daughter has breast cancer. I don't think I was supportive enough, and that's why I'm vowing right now to end breast cancer by the year 2015 for all the women in America.
I have no doubt of what the greatest mistake in my life has been, and that is that it took me probably 30 years before I realized that Jesus Christ is my personal Savior.
Congressman Tancredo, thank you all very much. We have one more. We have one more round. I also want to bring all of you in on this for about 30 seconds each, and I'm going to introduce it by showing everyone something that President Bush said at the Iowa straw poll 8 years ago. It was his fundamental promise as president.
I know this. Should I be fortunate enough to become the President of the United States, that when I put my hand on the Bible, I will swear to not only uphold the laws of the land, I will swear to uphold the honor and the dignity of the office to which I have been elected, so help me God.
Congressman Tancredo, that was the core promise of President Bush's campaign, to restore honor and dignity to the Oval Office. What will you restore to the Oval Office?
Hope. Hope in America itself. Remembering that we have made a number of mistakes that have turned our friends against us, have encouraged our enemies. I believe that with all my heart that it is going to take a leader committed to the ideas of Western civilization, to the rhetorical, to speaking out about the values of Western civilization. We can no longer afford political correctness. We have to tell people that there is something good, not just good, but great about who we are. That will restore America's faith in itself and the world's faith in America.
Governor Thompson.
I would open up the East Wing. I would open it up to bring in the best minds, Democrats, Republican, Independents across America, that want to get something done with this great country. Instead of tearing it down, start building pro-America and make sure that we're not so politically correct, that we are sacrificing our values in America in this jihadist war. And by bringing in the best minds, the best people, we can change the direction and really start building America stronger and healthier and better tomorrow than ever before.
Senator Brownback, what would you restore to the Oval Office?
Rebuilding the family. You know, in Washington, D.C. right now, 63% of the children are born out of wedlock. Nationwide, the number is 36%. You can raise a good child in that setting, but it gets more difficult. Best place between a mom and a dad bonded together for life. I would stand for life, and I would appoint next justice, I hope would be the voting decision to overturn Roe versus Wade.
I love my country. I've had the great honor for more than 50 years of serving it in the military, in Congress, the United States Senate, and I am fully prepared, more than anyone else running on either side, to fight the transcendent challenge of this nation, which will be all of the 21st century, and that is the struggle against radical Islamic extremism. We must win, we will win, and we will never surrender. They will.
I would do the same thing that I did as mayor of New York City, and that is I would restore hope, but for the people of the entire country. Hope that this country can do great things, grand things, that we can build our future on optimism, not this kind of defeatism that I hear from the Democratic candidates. And in deference to the senator, I think the senator is a great man and very well qualified. But the fact is, I looked at the three leading Democratic candidates. They haven't held an executive office in their lives. They haven't run a city, a state, a business. I think maybe they've run a club somewhere. But the reality is, you've got to have some kind of experience for this job. You have to be able to show that you can accomplish things and you can get things done. And I've done that, and I would do that for this country.
Governor Romney.
I thought a lot about this question, and I took my inspiration from my dad, from Ronald Reagan, Teddy Roosevelt, the Declaration of Independence. My view is that America is going to be strengthened by virtue of